We've already seen that Ukraine is being provided with a small number of T-72 tanks to help them fight the Russians. We don't have the kind of tanks in our armed forces that would be useful to the Ukrainians. It would require a great deal of training for them to be able to not only use but also maintain our tanks. But the kind of vehicle you mentioned, the Mastiff and the Jackal, are relatively simple vehicles. They're wheeled vehicles, but they have armoured protection. They have the capability of mounting machine guns on them and therefore are available for use for offensive operations, the kind of offensive operations that the Ukrainians hopefully will now be conducting more effectively against the Russians. So yeah, it's a really important step forward and something we should, do our best to develop even more if we possibly can. The more we can supply them with these armoured vehicles, the more effective they're going to be.
Yeah, I just wonder whether its value is more symbolic than practical, because as described, and people would have seen these vehicles in footage from Afghanistan and Iraq, and essentially they're slightly more mobile, agile versions of bigger of Land Rovers. I mean, you could almost the job they're going to be doing if they get sent, if they get used on the front lines, is not that different from what a civilian SUV would do.
Well, that's to an extent true, but they are, in fact, they're quite heavily armoured. They're well protected. You can manoeuvre across country depending on the terrain, but you can manoeuvre across country in these vehicles in a way you couldn't with a normal SUV. And as I say, they can mount machine guns on them. They can provide protected mobility, which means that you can move forward fire support. You can move forward infantry soldiers in these vehicles with a degree of protection, maybe supporting tanks or somewhere near tank operations. So they are, I wouldn't characterise their use as symbolic. They were very effective in Afghanistan, I think, particularly, and they will be very helpful, very useful for the Ukrainians.